I'm Rue, and this is the third and final video of my sprinkler hack series. In my first video, I showed you the 1 mil consumption rule, where a sprinkler that receives only 1 mil per second behaves the same way as a sprinkler that receives 2 mils per second. In my second video, I showed you the sprinkler pulsing trick, where we can pulse a sprinkler on and off to basically increase the output over time. Today, I'm going to show you dark water. And you're going to see that this is a really effective way to stretch your water as far as you want it to go. And I'm pretty sure that Face Punch didn't intend water to be used this way. So it's really a matter of time before this gets patched. Until then, enjoy it while it lasts. If you've got 2 pumps and a bunch of barrels, you can build pretty much as big a farm as you want. So let's get into it. And just to show you how effective a system like this can be, I've built this ridiculous farm for you. I've got 2 pumps running non-stop here, and they're staying at full capacity. They're not running out of water at any way whatsoever, and they're supplying enough water for this entire farm. This is 648 planters. There's 108 sprinklers altogether, and I'm using all of the hacks that I've shown you in this series. You can hear that the sprinklers are pulsing on and off every 3 seconds. I'm putting 1 mil per second into each of these sprinklers, and then I've got this dark water system going on the roof. In order to understand what's going on here, we need to know about max depth, and we need to know how things like splitters, fluid switches, and combiners affect our water systems. Things like barrels, water pumps, rain catchers, that's the source of our water. You can kind of think of it as the windmill or the solar panel of our water system. And water is allowed to travel through up to 15 components before we notice some things happening. And so after this 15th pump right here, I can hook that up to my sprinkler, and I'm going to see that it's going to fill up my planter box with no issues. That's going to fill for as long as I want it to. However, if I was to connect a 16th fluid switch and hook that up to my sprinkler, then we see something happening. The sprinkler appears to be spraying water. It's animated, but if I watch my planter box, it's not going to fill up in any way. It doesn't recognize the water coming out of the sprinkler. The water coming out of the sprinkler is what's known as dead water. So it appears to be working, but my planter boxes aren't going to be able to receive any of that water. However, I can take that water, that dead water, and I can connect it to a barrel. And if I look, the water is going through those 16 fluid switches, and it's going to fill up this barrel. And this works all the way from 16 up until, let's see here, I've got 16 there, and I've got another 15 pumps here. So that's 31 pumps. We'll be able to transport water from one barrel into another one. And that's what we call dead water. It's not recognized by our sprinkler. However, it will still transport from one barrel to another. And this is what you're going to do if you're transporting water, halfway across the map from a water source to your base. But as soon as I attach one more fluid switch, so this is 32 right here, and I hook that up to my barrel, then I'm no longer getting water moving. That's my max depth. I can't have water flow through more than 31 components. Otherwise, it's just gone and it won't move anywhere. We don't need to really be too concerned about max depth of 32. We're just concerned about what's going on right here, where if we have water flowing through more than 15 components, then we see this happening and water is not able to fill those planter boxes. And the same idea applies to fluid combiners and fluid splitters. Here in this system, I've got water flowing from a barrel up there, and it's going to flow through 15 fluid combiners. And if I take the water from that 15th fluid combiner attached to my sprinkler, then it's going to fill up my planter box with no problems. However, if I take my water and attach it to a 16th component here, like this fluid splitter, then the same thing applies as before, where water is animating, but it's not going to fill up my planter box in any way. I could transfer that to another barrel over here if I wanted to, like so. And water is able to flow into there, no problem. For some reason, when that 16th component is a fluid combiner, we reach a max depth short circuit error, and water just, it won't even animate from our sprinkler. It's not even going to apply. So in order for this system to work the way we want it to, that 16th component has to either be a fluid splitter or a fluid switch, as we used before. So here's where the fun begins. I can take water from a second source barrel and I can combine it into my system, and I'm going to put it going into my 15th water combiner right here. So there's 12 water coming from that barrel, and there's 12 water coming from that barrel. So 24 water altogether going into this splitter right here, and then going into my sprinkler here eventually, like this. Now, there is, you know, this barrel is hidden behind this 16th component, but the water from this barrel only needs to flow through 2 components before reaching my sprinkler. And so when we do that, we see that it is going to fill up my planter box. I am going to get water filling at a regular rate. But the cool part here is that we can see in this barrel right here, water's not getting used up at all. Only in this barrel are we actually using water up. It's losing water at a rate of 12 mils per second. However, we actually have 24 water available. This is tricking the system into thinking that that water is able to be used by the sprinklers and fill up our planter boxes, even though water's not actually getting used from this source barrel. And I'm going to show you that that 24 mils is available for the system to use in a regular setup. If I show you in this barrel, I've got 100 mils, and it's going to travel through my 15 fluid combiners eventually to a fluid switch. And so that water is not being recognized by these sprinklers. But as soon as I attach this barrel, which has a bunch of water in it, and you can see the water level is going down, it's going to go into this 15th fluid combiner, and the sprinklers do recognize that that's water is available. However, it's tricking the system into thinking that 24 is available instead of the 12 from this barrel. And so I've got 11 sprinklers here. They're all using up 2 mils per second. So that's 22 mils. And then I've got my last 2 coming into this sprinkler, and it's filling up this planter box, no problem. If I had planter boxes under all of these sprinklers right here, they would be filling up as normal, like you would expect. This can be expanded to make way more water available to your system than it will actually use in the long run. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. So if this isn't quite making sense, I'm hoping to show you a few examples here. This is a similar one as before. I've got a source barrel down there on the end. Its water is going to travel through 15 of these fluid combiners, and then on the 15th fluid combiner, I'm going to attach this barrel right here. And so I have effectively 24 water available to my fluid switch, and it's only going to actually use the 12 water available in this barrel. Okay, this is a similar setup right here. Again, a source barrel down there, 15 combiners, but instead of a fluid switch, I've got a fluid combiner or fluid splitter. If you're not worried about controlling the flow like here, you can just have it flow directly into a fluid splitter and then have it go out to your sprinklers from there. And again, I've got 24 water available in my system, but I'm only actually going to use the 12 from this barrel. Something to note though, I explained earlier, when we have for our 16th component a fluid combiner, we get this short circuit max depth error. That water is not going to be available for my sprinkler. It won't recognize that. So don't use a fluid combiner as your 16th component. It just won't work. The system will not recognize that water is there, and you'll have some issues. So I recommend that you use a fluid switch. That's the easiest. You can control the flow of water that way, and it just seems to work a lot better. So if we do that, and instead of having one barrel here at the top, why don't I connect 3 barrels right here to this first fluid combiner? And so there's 12, 24, and 36 all combining into this fluid combiner right here. And then it travels through our 15 fluid combiners to this one where I attach my final barrel right here. And so now 48 water is available to my fluid switch. However, I'm only actually going to use or consume the 12 mils coming from this barrel. And we can expand this even further. So I've built a combiner tree of sorts where I've got 9 barrels hooked up to my system, and from source all the way to this combiner right here, water is traveling through 15 components because of the combiner tree that I built here at the end. And so all of that source water goes through 15 components to this point. I hook up my final barrel right here, and so 120 water is available as a result in my system. However, it's only going to use the 12 water available from this barrel. It's just going to think that 120 will go out to my sprinklers. And if you ever build a farm that requires 120 sprinklers, that's going to be a big farm. But maybe that's not big enough, and you want to use 54 barrels in this system, and you can attach them all into this system using the same combiner tree that I've done before. From source to this component right here, all water is traveling through 15 components, and then I attach my source barrel right here into this combiner, and so there's 648 water available as a result, plus the 12 from this barrel. I've got 660 water available to my system, but I'm only going to consume the 12 mils per second from this barrel right here. Now we could keep going. This combiner tree here could just expand outwards on and on and on. I could have this split off to 3 combiners and then those 3 to more, and keep going and going and going. But you're never going to do that. If you ever did a farm even this big that requires 660 water, you're going to get kicked off the server. It's going to cause lag, and people are going to be upset with you. And so, although there is a limit, it's incredibly high, and you're never going to reach that point before things start to get a little crazy. So how can we apply this system to our farms? Well, the best example that I can think of is you water catcher farmers. So I have my 3 dark water barrels right here. They're going to combine into this combiner, and then I've got them flowing through all of these combiners. This is my 15th component right here, and my actual source water is coming from right here, and it's just daisy chained from all of my water catchers into extra water storage right here. And so 48 water is available to my system as a result. I'm only going to use 12 mils per second from here. This water is not going to get used up at all, but the system is going to think that water is available. And it's going to flow into my fluid switch right here. And that fluid switch is controlled by an auto timer. I always use auto timers in my water catcher farms just so that I can maintain 100% conditions of these farms. Now, that 48 water I've split into 48 different sprinklers, and this isn't a normal sprinkler setup, but because I'm using extra sprinklers, I run those for a much shorter period of time in order to maintain 100% conditions. They fill up when the sprinklers run, my planter boxes fill up really fast, and then they can stay off for a while, so I'm not using as much water. And with 48 sprinklers, I've got 48 planter boxes in this farm all together. And with those 48 planter boxes and a setup like this, if I'm keeping these plants at 100% conditions from planting them all the way until 0% ripe, I'm only using 12,240 mils for the entire grow. So this is allowing me to save an incredible amount of water. Now, the really cool thing about this farm is that I can build it entirely from a tier 1 workbench. I'm using 2 small batteries. That's all I need to power this entire farm. I don't need a water pump at all. I am using fluorescent lights, so you do need the DLC for that. Otherwise, the power does get a little bit out of hand. But if you've got that DLC, then a farm like this is entirely possible from a tier 1 workbench. If I get enough comments or enough people asking, maybe I'll do a tutorial for this farm and show you exactly how we can build this using tier 1 items. So maybe water catcher farmers just aren't your thing. Maybe you're just building a really big farm. 648 planter boxes is a lot, but I've seen people do it, and you just need a lot of water. Well, you can save yourself a ton of power if you take 2 pumps and you attach it to this source barrel right here. This is the barrel that hooks up into our 15th fluid combiner. If you do 2 pumps into this barrel, then it's going to stay full for as long as you want. It's never going to run dry. And then you can decide on this end of the system how many of these barrels you're going to need. I've got 8 barrels here so that I can achieve 108 water coming out, but maybe you only need 3 or 4 barrels, or maybe only even 1 barrel to get your system working the way that you want it to. And that's it. That's dark water, and that's the last of my sprinkler hacks that I've got to show you. I hope this helps. I hope you get something out of it. Stick around. I'm going to have more farming content for you. So like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, I'm more than willing to help out. Until then, thanks for watching. See you next time.